It was a cold winter evening, and I had just finished up a long, tiring day at work. To clear my mind, I decided to take a walk through the woods near my house. I had always loved the serenity and peace the woods brought, especially during the winter months when the snow blanketed the earth and the world seemed to slow down. I put on my boots, wrapped a thick scarf around my neck, and stepped out the door. The cold hit me immediately, but it was the kind of cold that was refreshing rather than unbearable. The walk to the woods was short, only a few minutes from my home. As I reached the edge of the trees, I couldn't help but smile to myself. There was something about the way the fog hovered above the ground, the trees towering over me, and the silence of it all that made me feel at peace. But that night there was something different. Something was off. The usual birds and animals that could be heard in the distance were silent. The trees stood still, almost as if they were waiting for something. It was eerie. I continued walking, stepping carefully over the thick blanket of snow, my boots crunching with each step. The fog was getting denser, and soon I could barely see more than a few feet in front of me. I thought about turning back, but something deep inside urged me to keep going, so I pushed on. After a while, I reached a narrow path I had walked many times before. It was a trail that twisted through the trees, one that most people avoided because it led to a small clearing in the woods. The clearing was a beautiful spot during the day, but at night it always gave me a strange feeling like something was watching me, but I felt drawn to it, almost as if an invisible force was guiding me. As I entered the clearing, I felt a sudden chill run down my spine. The fog was thick here, swirling around like smoke. I paused for a moment to take in my surroundings. The trees seemed to have closed in on me, their branches creating a canopy of shadows. It was eerily quiet, and the only sound I could hear was the crunch of snow under my feet. Then I heard it, a soft, distant sound. It was like a whisper, barely audible above the wind. My heart raced. I strained my ears, trying to make out the words, but the voice was too faint. I stood frozen, listening intently, but the whisper stopped as quickly as it had started. I shook it off and started walking again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. It was as if the very trees around me were alive, their eyes following my every move. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. Then I saw it, a figure in the distance standing near the edge of the clearing. At first I thought it was a trick of the fog, but as I squinted I realized that it was a person, a tall figure dressed in all black, their back turned towards me. They stood motionless, as if waiting for something. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The figure didn't respond. They just stood there, silent and still. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I forced myself to take a step forward. "Are you lost?" I asked again, hoping for some kind of response. Still, no answer. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. My instincts told me to turn around and leave, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Something was pulling me towards that figure, urging me to approach. I took another step closer. The fog was so thick now that I could barely make out the details of the person standing in front of me. They were tall, unnaturally tall, and their form seemed to shift and waver like a shadow in the mist. I was only a few feet away when the figure slowly turned its head towards me. I froze in place. The face I saw was not human. It was pale, almost translucent, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through me. Its mouth opened, but no sound came out. Instead, a low, guttural growl filled the air, sending waves of terror through my body. I wanted to run, but my feet felt like they were glued to the ground. The figure stepped closer, its movements slow and deliberate. I could feel the coldness emanating from it, a coldness so deep it felt like it was freezing my very soul. In a panic, I broke free from whatever hold it had on me and turned to flee. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest, but no matter how fast I ran, I could still hear the heavy footsteps of the figure behind me, getting closer and closer. I turned my head just once, and to my horror I saw the figure right behind me, its face inches from mine, its breath icy cold on my skin. I screamed, my voice echoing through the trees, but the figure didn't stop. It kept coming, relentless and unyielding. I didn't know how much time passed or how far I ran, but eventually I found myself at the edge of the woods, gasping for air, my legs trembling with exhaustion. I dared not look back. I turned and sprinted back to my house, slamming the door shut behind me. I'd tried to tell myself it was just a hallucination, that the fog and isolation had played tricks on my mind, but deep down I knew it was real. Something dark, something evil was out there in the woods, and it had followed me. That night, as I lay in bed, I kept hearing soft whispers in the wind, like the voice I had heard in the clearing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that the figure was still watching me from the darkness outside. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those hollow eyes staring back at me, and I could hear that growl echoing in my mind. I never went back into those woods after that night, and I never will.